Hey, Jason.
Mr. Looker?
This is Ray Looker. Is Jason there?
This is him. How are you, sir?
Jason Goodman.
Yes, Ray. How are you? Can you hear me?
Are you Jason?
I am indeed. Are you able to hear me clearly?
No, this is Ray Looker.
Okay, great. Glad to speak with you. So I see you've just sent me an email. I haven't had a chance to read this email yet.
That's no problem.
Right.
Just stating a couple of things. I read the article there that you sent me, and it was somewhat interesting. Certain things are kind of not mentioned. One, Marshall had already been working with the FBI for 12 years before he latched on to me.
Uh-huh.
Secondly, Marshall was not only the intelligence officer, he was the second in command.
Of your militia?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership positions that Rafferty said he could not have. Another thing is that Marshall's involvement with the militia did not begin in the spring of 1995. It began in the fall of 1994 when I was running for election as the House of Representatives in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I lost. Of course, I knew him since 1990. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I knew him as a Navy SEAL, a Naval Intelligence Officer, and a federal police officer on floater status, who also were on call with Rafferty, the FBI.
All of which were lies, correct?
Well, the fact that he was working with Rafferty was not a lie.
But Navy SEALs and Vietnam experience are not true, correct?
And he never went to Vietnam. Also, he got a other than honorable discharge from the Navy, which the FBI upgraded to an honorable discharge.
Wow.
After my incarceration. So, everybody, the only person that didn't gain out of this was me.
You spent some considerable time in prison, didn't you?
Say again?
You spent considerable time in prison, didn't you?
Well, essentially it goes on and on and on because there's no forgiveness in the government. I can't go hunting anymore. I like to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
All past tense. Also, you don't get a job. There's so many alsos. Okay. But incarceration never goes away. Okay, I spent about 20 years. 15 as they say in jail, prison.
Yeah.
But also there's the 3 years and 8 months afterwards. I was in a halfway house in a ghetto in Cincinnati, which that's not my area of livelihood.
This must have destroyed your family.
Well, let's say that it's kind of sort of, you might say that. When your wife no longer trusts you anymore, and she's been, when I was first incarcerated, even though the FBI initiated, financed, controlled, and executed everything through their, Marshall was not an informant. He was not a cooperative witness.
Mm-hmm.
He was an agent provocateur for the FBI. Okay?
Do you think he's still doing that now?
How do you think he's been living for the last 20 years? Actually, 30 years, if you count the 12 years ahead. There's no record of anything. Why? Because, as we already know, the FBI pays cash. Uh-huh. In West Virginia, to get up to $5,000 a month, tax-free, is equivalent to like getting $100,000 a year spending cash. That's right. West Virginia, it kind of rates down there with Alabama or something like that.
Right.
Although I passed through Alabama one time. I did.
I get it.
Nothing against Alabama.
I get it.
But the point is, when you talk about the economy, you're talking down at the bottom of the list. And when he's raking in the equivalent of $100,000 a year to put me in prison, there's something pretty darn fishy going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rafferty, the FBI agent, who's now, by the way, nominated by President Trump for the U.S. Marshal position. Rafferty was very cooperative with the Clinton administration, and that's why by the time the 8 years of the Clinton administration was over, he had already, sort of like Comey and all these other people that today are being exposed as frauds.
Yep.
He was right there in there with them under the Clinton administration, receiving great and honorable rewards and appointments and cash under the table for every enhancement he could create, which he admits in court.
Mm-hmm.
Which, not that he didn't mention in court that he was getting the enhancement. He just, whatever. But he was. I was arrested in October. He was a FBI agent with 26 years service. The following August, he's a senior ranking supervising agent with 29 years service. I said, well, I must be this new math because I can't quite figure that out.
Right.
But no, this was a conspiracy. This was all based upon in 1994. Congress did not approve Clinton's, well, in 94, I picketed the Hillary Clinton healthcare bus.
Uh-huh.
The doctor I was with, the next morning he had 3 or 4 federal officers at his door to do audits, and they put him out of business.
Mm.
And me, I was really nothing. So they had their time, and I ran for election and so on.
Right.
I was running for election. That's why I was picketing the healthcare bus.
Right.
That first trial, my defense attorney, number one, hated the militia. He's a progressive liberal Democrat.
Your attorney hated the militia. This was a court-appointed attorney, I presume?
Well, yeah, he's not a public defender. They got a list of people to fill in to take cases. And the first one, his wife worked with the U.S. attorney. By the way, the U.S. attorney and the judge were law partners before they got their new positions.
Wow.
So they were working hand in glove long before anything. The U.S. attorney was appointed to Janet Reno's advisory staff. 3.5 years later, he joined the largest law firm in West Virginia.
So all of this seems to be par for the course in every single case we're hearing about, where, it's just all cronies in the courtroom and people go in there expecting justice, get railroaded, and spend years of their lives in jail.
Well, unfortunately, they destroyed a lot of good lives, even within the militia. First of all, I did not direct anything. It was Marshall did it. Well, I'll never recall all they did to me. They took me. They kept me unemployed for 2 years before they arrested me. They arrested me. Oh my goodness! 2 weeks before the '96 election, everything was done. And 2 weeks before my sentencing, Janet Reno goes to West Virginia to talk to the judge. On a maximum sentence of 6 years and 10 months, I got basically 20 years.
How did that happen?
It's political. Very simple.
But why were they
You know,
so interested in putting you in jail? What did you represent that they wanted you to go away?
Opportunity. They didn't want me to go away. They loved me.
So how did this all happen?
Rafferty came to me and asked me to cooperate with the FBI so that, one, we would not have any Oklahoma cities in West Virginia. I said, I got no problem with that. I hate criminals too. I was a public, I worked in a public defender's office in Nevada. I was the director of compliance enforcing a federal court order on a hospital for the criminally insane. I was a auxiliary police officer. You know, I knew all this crap. I got a law degree. I wasn't from Harvard or Yale or Princeton, but, you know, it seemed to have been a lot better than what they're using today.
Uh-huh.
They don't even know what the Constitution is today. My lawyer says the Constitution doesn't exist.
Well, I think he's
I
right.
said, they can't do this. He says, yes, they can. I said, no, they can't. And there's a 1965 law says, Supreme Court ruling, that the government cannot ask you to do something and then turn around and prosecute you for it. And my attorney says, yes, they can. He says the Constitution doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And that was my defense. I go to the judge, filed a motion for writ of habeas corpus for outrageous government misconduct.
Right.
They asked me to do something, and I cooperate with them. Hey, Marshall was sent in to handle me. And that's the key operative word there. He was not doing an investigation. He was initiating on behalf of the FBI, and Rafferty says that there was up to 3 to 5 times a day they were talking on the phone, which means that that's pretty close coordination. And as part of the radical, I'm not radical. Are you crazy? I was the NCOIC of Security and Intelligence, a general staff level position in the Army. I had a cosmic top secret security clearance with cryptographic access. I knew all about intelligence in that respect.
Huh.
And what?
Well, that's just very interesting. I mean, it's let me give you a little backstory as to how I came to know Marshall Richards, and I'm just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. I mean, I'm 46. My career was as a filmmaker in Hollywood, and that career ended in about 2013. And I spent a little while not doing too much work, and then I decided to become a journalist. And what I did, I think, that's ruffled some feathers is I've sort of discovered this method of investigative journalism that is, crowdsourcing. So I've sort of created inadvertently this open source intelligence network. And what it's doing is it's leading me to people like you, CIA whistleblowers, FBI whistleblowers, who may be lying to me. I don't know. But I mean, I sort of gather this information, I report these stories, I put them out, and then someone found you, and now you and I are connected, and I'm learning all these things. I knew Marshall Richards as Richard Stone, and he was introduced to me by my former investigative partner, George Webb, who I have come to distrust tremendously. And only since I've discovered you and learned about your story have I really begun to question some of the things that Marshall Richards did and said. But now I'm questioning them. I don't trust him anymore because of the things I've seen in that transcript. I mean, he told me he was a Vietnam veteran and was on a mission to rescue POWs. It seems now that is all fabricated.
Yeah. See, the fact that he had been working with Rafferty for already 12 years before he latched on to me, psychologically, he was convinced he was a federal police officer on floater status, on call whenever they needed him. I mean, to a sociopathic liar, you put him on the whatever lie detector, he'll pass every time. because he sincerely believes that he is what he says he is.
Right.
But my attorney very nicely informed the prosecution some things that were detrimental to me.
Why did he do that?
Why? He hated militias. He hated guns.
Why didn't you get rid of that attorney and get somebody else?
He was a Catholic. He hated Jews, and I'm a Messianic rabbi. Oh,
Right.
by the way, the news media says I was, self-appointed? That's bullshit. I was ordained in 1973 with the Church of God Pentecostal out of Texas, okay? And again, in 1980, when I was a pastor at the Grace Gospel Ministries and also Temple Messiah, I was reordained under the Messianic umbrella at that time, no self-appointed, and
Right.
They say that something about my degree, a doctorate of theology. Hey, I'll tell you what, I went through the same BS as everybody else who went to university and seminary. Theology means that I was forced to study Catholic theology and claim it was Christian theology. But, God got a hold of me and says, what are you doing? You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then he began to teach me. And then I realized that what happened there was I was doing cross-cultural study in educational and motivational psychology in Finland. And the student said, well, I was teaching there. That might work in America, but this is another culture. We're Finnish, it may not even work here.
Right.
Well, that kind of crossover training went into my studies on theology and the Bible. I said, wait a minute, we got a serious problem here. Whatever. But now they hate me because they say, wait a minute, I paid you horrendous amounts of money to learn all the lies of theology, claiming they're Christian because they were all Catholic. They were not even Christian. And I was forced for almost 10 years to preach and teach according to, quote, the requirements of the religion.
Right.
And so, I was a missionary in Europe. I was a missionary in China. So all this baloney about self-appointed is no, the fact that in prison the rabbi says to me, "Look, you're a religion of one." I say, "Yes, me and Noah." He was a religion of one too. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. It doesn't mean Noah was wrong either. But if I can support it with the Bible, when I say the Bible, I mean the law of God, then I'm right.
Right.
Because everything else, the New Testament is subjected, has been subjected for 2,000 years with Catholic theology.
Right.
And interpretation of what they gave us.
Well, let me take you back for a moment to the trial and the whole issue with Mr. Marshall, Mr. Richards.
They said I had radical thinking. I had no radical thinking. How could I have radical thinking? That's like I get 3 reports when I was in the militia there. I had 3 reports from 3 different Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia about something,
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, well, you've got 3 people who have come forth and said. I said, no, I said, you don't understand. I said, you just revealed to me 3 people who listen to the same radio program.
Right.
I said, I didn't get 3 confirmations. I didn't get anything.
Right.
And that's my rationale. How could I be irrational and radical? I'm not, I served my country for all my life.
Right. Was there a plan to bomb an FBI building or a federal building of some kind?
Okay, that was one of the charges, but that's also bullshit. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Excuse my French. Okay. I
No,
don't know whether
it's
this is
fine.
allowed on your line or not, but
Yeah, it is. Say whatever you like.
Probably why the unrepentant preachers don't like me is because if someone says if nobody curses, don't trust them.
Right.
Anyway, okay. For months and months and months and months, and this is the way Marshall works, he works on you, just like for 9 months he found out that let's see, the Moore in Huntington had a BATF license for explosives, you know.
Uh-huh.
And for 9 months, he pestered me. We have to have a class. We have to have a class. We have
to have a what?
Class. A class on explosives.
That was Marshall Richards said that.
Yes. And now let's link this little tip. Okay. Finally, I consented to have the class.
Yeah.
I said, but only certain people that I know are not crazy will even be invited to the class. One of which was a Bridgeport police officer and undercover detective for the sheriff's department.
Right.
To make sure everything is above board. Okay. Well, the day before the class, I called Moore. I said, "Are you all ready for the class tomorrow?" He said, "Yeah." He says, Marshall called me and insisted that a live demonstration would really be such a wonderful thing to have, and it would emphasize the. I says, "What?" He said, "Yeah, Marshall said that." I says, "Well, now who am I talking about? I'm talking about my my friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
My intelligence officer, my second in command, who is going around me and directing the operation."
Right.
And I says, "Well, okay." I said, but I said, "I'll make sure." I said, "You're the only one with a license to handle explosives." I says, "I don't know that it would hurt anything," and it didn't. But it was not intended initially.
Right.
Marshall set it up, and he didn't show up that day, by the way.
Really?
Of course, he was out of the picture. When things happened, he was, quote, somewhere else.
Really?
Not everything. But anyway, the blueprints, he found out that the fire in 94, he was interested in the fingerprint facility.
Right. Marshall was.
Yes. And the thing about it was, we were going to put together a children's. Now, Marshall and I, since 1990, had discussed various ways of, quote, making money.
Uh-huh.
And some of which we, like the Sino-American Foundation, I even wrote up the articles of incorporation and that kind of all this other legal stuff. And I even had that one registered in New York. I was up there.
Right.
And but it never came through. The deal with the creating a database for registering children, you know, so that if there's a kidnapping, lost, or whatever,
right,
that there be a database, and he mentioned a link with the FBI facility. That was in '94. And said, well, you know, our database linked with theirs would, you know, make it a lot easier to find people who disappear. So I drew up the paperwork. We had an attorney come in. I said, this is, because not all attorneys do foundations or anything like that. Right. But I had already done that with the Sino-American Development Foundation up in New York, so I knew IRS regulations as well as the legal things. So hey, I do have a law degree, okay?
Yeah.
Whether they like it or not. And I do have a theology degree, whether they like that or not. And I was ordained, whether they like that or not. You know, I don't have a 40,000 member church. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say because they love their lies and fraud. Anyway, back to Marshall. The whole idea, he wanted to, initially, he came, he says, you know, maybe we can get a hold of the plans, construction plans. Well, one of the sympathizers of the militia was an individual who actually joined the militia and was sympathetic to it. He was the architect. But you know, if I had wanted it, I could have gone directly to him. I told the Godwin, the assistant U.S. attorney, I said, hey, you know, if I had wanted it, you know, I could have got it directly from I would have worked with the man who drafted them. But Marshall says, well, Richard's fire department, he started linking the fire department and the FBI facility and says that, you know, you have access to that, this, that, and the other, you know. And then he ends up finally, he badgers month after month after month, okay? And that's the way he gets things done, you know. Until he gets the response he wants, he keeps badgering. So that little deal came through, and there was no plan to blow up anything. There was no capability to blow up anything. I did not have a militia. All I had was paperwork. Paper would come initially. They came one weekend, 3 days on the mountain, go home, never see them again. Is that a functional militia? No, I wouldn't think so. And at the time of my arrest, Marshall was never officially sworn in as a militia member because, in my way of thinking, he didn't need it. He was already a federal police officer. So it was useless to get a Pledge of Allegiance from somebody who was already had an official Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't figure that my little militia, paper militia, a Pledge of Allegiance mounted to a hill of beans, you know.
Right.
And you got to remember, after 14 years, I knew what a soldier was, and I knew that these people that were concerned about the government put them on the hill for 2 or 3 days. They go home, they're happy. They've made their contribution, and now they can forget about it and go back to work. And that was my whole take on the whole thing. It was like a bunch of Boy Scouts, only less qualified. I mean,
wow.
They never came back.
Well, so
the militia, I was the only member.
Right.
At the time of my arrest, there were no other members. Everybody had, quote, let their membership lapse and never came back. They had a list, but that was just a mailing list of people who initially at one time in their life says, what is it all about, you know? So I would send them information. It was a mailing list. They said there was about 100 names on it, but they were meaningless names. When you talk about a functional militia, there was no functional militia. It was all Clinton, I got it. We got to go back to the political implications and how the Clinton administration used the FBI. In fact, when I filed my motion for habeas corpus, Billy Boy was in Pennsylvania with a bunch of state highway patrol behind him. I have a motion to get out of prison, right, jail. He makes a presidential mandate. These people will be brought to trial. Then he goes to Clarksburg and has a healing ministry for the community. All BS because he and his wife orchestrated it all.
Right.
There was no threat to anything. There was no concept of bombing it. There was not.
So they just basically set you up because Marshall Richards wanted money from the FBI, wanted to live out this life of being a government agent, which he seems to continue to be doing, lying to me about his background, etc.
Richards, we got to go back. I said 94. Congress did not pass the crime bill. Okay?
Yeah.
Billy Boy had not been able to give Janet Reno a 400-member rapid deployment strike force. He had not been able to turn all federal funding over to the control for police operations in America to Janet Reno. He was not able to do any of that. Yet after my trial, after this little proactive operation of the FBI, under direction of the presidential mandate to take out the militias in America, to put teeth in it, the FBI got $1 billion increase to their budget. Al Capone didn't even do that.
Right.
And when I say that's an annual increase, not one time, every time.
Doesn't the Constitution say we're supposed to maintain a militia?
Yeah, most certainly it does. In fact, the Constitution also says the government must ensure that we have the equipment to do the job. You got to remember that in 1776, the weapons of war was what you used to go out and shoot squirrels with. Right. And slingshots are weapons of war in Israel.
Right.
But,
So, Ray, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think there's quite a lot for us to discuss. Do you use Skype or FaceTime or anything like that?
I don't do anything. I have no friends. Who wants to be a friend of a convicted felon? No one. I have nothing. And so I don't know your I have it on the computer, but the thing of it is my camera doesn't work on my computer.
Do you have a cell phone with a camera on it?
I suppose so, but I've been de-educated for 20 years, you know? You're not allowed to think in prison. You're not. I don't know anything about this stuff. Okay.
Well, I mean, even by phone, we could.
That's probably the only real way we can do it. I'd like to be on the program.
Yeah, great. Okay, good. Good.
Because I think, we have a presidential administration. Now we know who Hillary and Billy are.
Right.
We didn't know that in the 90s.
Right.
And they operated the same way then. Soros was their backer at that time, and he's still there. But it's just being exposed to what they've been doing all their lives. And they put good people, back off of that, they put vulnerable people into with a presidential position, you can appoint people and improve them and do anything you want to do. And that's what they did in the 90s to set up the deep state that's operative for Obama's election. I swear to God, they because of Hillary was totally in shock that she was not elected. In other words, Soros's system failed.
Right.
They've been doing this since the 90s, with laying out the foundation for a police state. As Clinton's bill said, hey, the American people are going to have to learn to give up some of their freedoms.
Right.
To ensure national security. No. That's not what the Constitution's about. That is our freedom.
Right.
Not surrendering to a tyrannical government that will do nothing to protect you. In fact, this outrageous misconduct. Did you ever look at the book, Outrageous Misconduct? It's on Kindle, Amazon Kindle, 99 cents. But that's outrageous misconduct. the one about the trial and everything. But that explains it. I don't mention names because, gee, I was in prison.
Yeah.
And on parole or whatever you want to call that.
Right.
For
Right.
3.5 years.
When's a good time for you and I to speak next?
My time is my time. You know, it's like I have nothing to do, really. Afternoon or evening, anytime like that.
Okay, all right. Well, let me run right now to prepare for this other show, but I'll be in touch with you, and what we'll do is we'll put together a series of conversations to get your story out and really try to understand what it is that Marshall Richards may, in fact, be up to.
Well, it's not only Marshall Richards. It's the whole kit and caboodle, because it was initiated and approved by the president. Right. Or his wife, co-president, Hillary. Yeah, the two Clintons.
Right.
So, you know, it's far more involved than just Marshall.
Of course.
By the way, you might expose the fact that anything he has to say in favor of Trump has ulterior motives, because he's been paid by the Clintons for the last 30 years.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you believe that he's actually involved in trying to expose and bring down the crimes of the Clintons?
No, he's doing what he always does. He gets into position to destroy the people involved.
I see. Yes, that seems to be what he was trying to do with me.
You?
Yes.
With Trump, with the Republican Party? Hey, he's deep state. You know, that's what the word means. He's so deep and rapidly deep state. Right. And he's been nominated for the U.S. Marshal position because even Republican leaders in West Virginia recommended him as a wonderful person. I said, I don't know how wonderful he is after. See, throughout all of my situation there was only two players, me and them. And because I know what I did or didn't do, that tells me what they did. Understand?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right.
And they took advantage of the fact that I can't hear too well to do whatever they want to do.
I understand.
Even with me sitting there, because I didn't know what was going on. Kind of looked a little ignorant and stupid, but I really didn't know what was going on because I didn't know what Marshall was trying to do.
Wow.
Or the FBI, since that's who he was working with.
Wow. All right. Well, Ray, we'll speak soon for sure. I appreciate you speaking with me, and I think there's a lot more for us to talk about.
Okay.
Have a good afternoon, sir. I really appreciate you speaking with me, and I will be in touch soon.
Yeah, we have a serious problem, and it's time we started addressing it and taking care of it.
Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thanks for the conversation. I enjoyed it. And there's still more to go. Yes, I'd cooperate in advertising and marketing this all over the world if we have to.
Yes, absolutely.
Expose what's the fraud. Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, sir. Bye-bye.
You too. God bless. Bye-bye.